Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. This is the second webinar in our online summer series on online marketing. Many of you saw this spring and summer that there was a surge in interest in local food. And so we wanted to help the farmers that we serve to reach those customers that were looking for more local food. We were asked to provide education on marketing and specifically online marketing. SARE offered funding, and so we convened a group of partners, the Entrepreneurial Center for Horticulture, and Dane Johnson, who is employed at the NICE Center at NDSU. And we put together 2 webinars, and Dane is offering free technical assistance to help farmers and food businesses set up digital marketing tools. We have funding to help up to 35 farmers and local food businesses to set up websites, online shops, and grow your social media following, completely free of charge. And we want you to take advantage of this free service. And that's why we're offering this webinar today. I want to start by taking a moment to acknowledge North Central SARE, North Dakota SARE, and the North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association. All 3 organizations have pledged funds so that we can provide these webinars and free technical assistance completely free of charge. We're using the webinar format today. That means that as participants, you are muted and we can't see your video. You can, however, ask questions in the chat box, which is at the bottom center of your screen, or the Q&A feature at the bottom, slightly left of center of your screen. We also have a Google Doc where you can introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, tell us about if you operate a farm or food business, we'd love to hear about that. And that's another great place to ask questions. We'll also be taking notes in this Google Doc and providing links to additional resources that we discussed today. And that will be available online at farrms.org Marketing 2020. Thank you to Dane Johnson, who is our back of house tech person today. He will be managing the Google Doc and monitoring the chat box because we want to make sure we don't miss any of your questions and that we address all of the questions that you ask. So today we're talking about online sales of processed food. If you're selling CSA shares online, or if you're selling fresh, uncut produce, the rules around that are pretty straightforward. There aren't many regulations you have to be concerned about. But many of you are selling processed foods, baked goods, jams and jellies, pickles, preserves, meat or eggs. And what about those? Can we sell those online? The short answer is yes. Even those of us who were coordinating this webinar had a lot of questions about how North Dakota cottage food rules applied to online sales. And we assume that you probably have a lot of questions too. And so that's why we put this webinar together today. First, you're going to hear from Jayme Calavera. Jayme works in the Environmental Health Division at 1st District Health Unit in Minot, and he's going to cover the basics of cottage food sales in North Dakota. We also have 2 farmers, Kara Winkler and Jen Skoog. Kara operates Glimpse of the Prairie with her mom, Wanda Burr, near Minokan, North Dakota. Jen operates Family Roots Farm near Christine, North Dakota. Both of these farmers have experience selling a wide array of products through their websites and online shops, and they're going to share their experience with you today. And so first, we have Holly Mobby from the Entrepreneurial Center for Horticulture, and she is going to give an introduction today.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to this webinar. This is a topic of great interest, of course, because of COVID and all of the other changes that we've had within our society lately, as well as just changes in consumer attitudes towards online shopping. And so we're seeing across the country, and especially here in North Dakota, many of our producers and farmers moving to some sort of online presence. Now, that online presence can be as simple as we have a list of our customers and we send them out an email occasionally, all the way up to we have a very robust website and we sell things online in our online store and everything in between. There are some guidelines and some rules and some tips and techniques to consider as you go about moving to having an online presence. And that's why we have these great folks with us here today. Everyone from Jayme, who can maybe explain some of the regulation sort of things or policy things to consider, to Kara and Jen, who have been doing it for a while, that might be able to do some pitfalls. I, of course, am with Dakota College at Botno and the North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association, and I would like to extend to all of you the invitation to give us a call at Dakota College at Botno or the North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association if you have questions about how to move forward with your product, either online or in person at a farmer's market or on-farm sales. You can reach us, you can reach me by calling 701-681-0252. That's 681-0252. Or you can email me at hollyrose.mawby, M-A-W-B-Y, at dakotacollege.edu. I'm always here to answer all of your questions when it comes to growing, raising, selling your products or your business plans for the future. Thanks for letting me introduce myself, Stephanie.
Absolutely. So Jayme, are you ready?
I am. So my name is Jayme Calavera, and I'm an environmental health practitioner here at the 1st District Health Unit. And today I'm going to talk to you about the Cottage Food Law. So let me get to my screen, get my presentation started. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the North Dakota Cottage Food Law, what it is and where you can find it. I'm going to talk about what the law actually includes, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about what it means if your food is not cottage food. So the first part of today's talk is the Cottage Food Law. It's comprised of two parts. First part is North Dakota Century Code 23-09.5, Cottage Food Production and Sales. This is the original part of the law, and it was adopted by the North Dakota legislature a couple years ago. And the second part is North Dakota Administrative Rules 33-3310. This part became effective January 1st of 2020, and it was promulgated by the Division of Food and Lodging with the North Dakota Department of Health. The easiest way to find the cottage food laws are to go to the North Dakota Department of Health's website. So at the bottom of the screen here, I have the link, www.healthnd.gov. And when you go to their website, it's going to take you to the main page, which looks like this. And this is for the entire health department. And the part that you want to find is going to be the cottage food rules. So you type in cottage food as a search, and it's going to give you a couple hits. The first hit is this one right here. And when you click on that, it takes you to the Division of Food and Lodging's page about cottage foods. And on here, they have some links to some of their handouts, some general information. And then here you can see this is the link that takes you to the administrative rules part of the law. And then right down here is the link to take you to the Century Code part of the law. Either of these two parts of law is very long. The Century Code part's a little bit more than a page, and the administrative rules are about 3 to 4 pages. So they're pretty brief and to the point. So when you want to look at them, that's the place to go. All right, second topic I'm going to talk about is what is actually in the Cottage Food Law. So in North Dakota Century Code, there are a couple different pieces, one of which is definitions. And one definition you need to know is cottage food products. And these are baked goods, jams, jellies, and other food and drink products produced by a cottage food operator. A cottage food operator is an individual who produces or packages cottage food products in a kitchen designed and intended for use by the residents of a private home. So the part of the cottage food law that's found in Century Code prohibits interstate commerce of cottage food. So you can't take yours out of state and other cottage foods can't come into the state. It prohibits cottage food products made from meat, and it prohibits the sale of products made from poultry unless you're a small flock producer who slaughters less than 1,000 birds per year. If you fall in that category, the birds themselves and the products that you make from them are allowed as cottage food. The Century Code part of the law actually also prohibits indirect sales. It states the transaction must be face-to-face. So what does that mean? Well, if you have an online presence, you can advertise, you can take orders, you can take payments using any kind of digital means you like. But what you can't do is you can't do anything where the final transfer of product to the informed end consumer from the cottage food operator is anything other than in person. The consumer has to get the product directly from the person that made it. Also in the Century Code part of the law, it states that the cottage food operator must inform the end consumer that the food is not certified, labeled, licensed, packaged, regulated, or inspected. It requires that foods requiring refrigeration be labeled to indicate that the product was transported and maintained frozen. And it requires a sign at the point of sale that states this product is made in a home kitchen that is not inspected by the state or local health department. And those are the actual words that are in the law. So those are the words that you have to have on your sign at the point of sale. The next part of the law is the administrative rules. Also has some definitions, including the definition for baked goods, which are foods that are usually produced from dough or batter that are baked before consuming. High acid or acidified foods, which are foods that are naturally high in acid or have had acid added to reduce the final pH to 4.6 or below. And home canned products. And these are high acid or acidified fruits and vegetables that are not TCS foods. So the administrative rules delineates the foods that do not fall under the definition of cottage food products in the Century Code. It gives the requirements for safe handling instructions and product disclosure statements, and it covers infectious disease in relation to the cottage food operator. So what is not cottage food? Any meat, wild game, fish, seafood, or shellfish, or any products containing such items cannot be sold as cottage food. Anything home canned cannot be sold as cottage food except those foods that are high acid or acidified. And cottage foods cannot include foods that are TCS foods with a few exceptions. So TCS foods, or time temperature control for safety foods, are those perishable foods that support the growth of disease-causing bacteria. TCS foods must be kept below 41 degrees Fahrenheit or above 135 degrees Fahrenheit to prevent the growth of disease-causing bacteria. TCS foods include any food of animal origin, whether it's raw or cooked. So raw hamburger, cooked hamburger. Things like butter, sour cream, ice cream, eggs, milk. If it came from an animal, it's a TCS food. TCS foods also include plant foods that are cooked, that are cut raw leafy greens, that are raw cut tomatoes, that are raw cut melons, and that are raw seed sprouts. TCS foods also includes garlic and oil mixtures, and those can be simple things like just taking garlic and smashing it and throwing it into some oil, but it also includes things like marinades or dressings that have garlic and oil as ingredients. So these TCS foods under the Cottage Food Law, the ones that are allowed, must be kept and transported frozen. They must include safe handling instructions and product disclosure statements. The TCS foods that are allowed under Cottage Foods Law include baked goods, home processed fresh cut fruits and vegetables that are dehydrated or freeze dried and have a safe moisture level. So that means that their water activity is less than 0.85, and home processed fresh cut fruits and vegetables that are blanched and frozen. And then it also includes the poultry as specified in the Century Code from small flock producers. Things that are not allowed as cottage food or not considered to be cottage food are dairy products, except for pasteurized dairy products that you use as an ingredient in one of the allowed cottage foods. Wild harvested, non-cultivated mushrooms cannot be cottage food. Alcoholic beverages cannot be cottage food. And animal feed or any products not intended for human consumption cannot be cottage food. The administrative rules also specify that some foods have to have safe handling instructions and product disclosure statements. They say that you may not sell anything misbranded or that is adulterated. And TCS baked goods, frozen blanched fresh cut fruits and vegetables, and uninspected raw poultry must include the statement previously handled frozen for your protection, refreeze, or keep refrigerated. Uninspected raw poultry must have the additional statement thaw in a refrigerator or microwave. Keep poultry separate from other foods. Wash cutting surfaces, utensils, and hands after touching raw poultry. Cook thoroughly. The administrative rule also touches on sick cottage food operators. It says that a cottage food operator or member of their private home that is afflicted with a contagious or infectious disease may not handle or prepare cottage food products or work in the cottage food production area. So my final topic is, what does it mean if the food that you wish to do or that you are doing is not cottage food? In North Dakota, if you produce and sell whole raw fruits and vegetables, if you are a small flock producer and you sell your own eggs, if you sell commercially made and packaged non-TCS foods, if you sell honey, or if you sell cottage foods, you're not required to have a license. If you're going to do any other foods, you're pretty much going to have to be licensed and regulated by someone. The Century Code for North Dakota requires that all the land of the state be under the jurisdiction of a local health department, but it doesn't specify what types of services that local health department has to provide. So here we have a map of North Dakota showing all of the local health departments. So out in the west half of the state, you can see in yellow several counties with purple lines around them, and those are what we call multi-county health districts. Across the rest of the state, you can see single county health departments in red or single county health districts in green. And I'm not sure what the difference is between a department or district, but you're basically going to be working with the single county. And then we have some city county health departments like you see in Barnes County, and districts, and then city county health departments like you see in Burleigh County. And again, I'm not sure what the difference is between department and district in that case. So this can be confusing because the local health jurisdiction may or may not regulate foods. So if you have questions, my recommendation is that you contact the North Dakota Department of Health Division of Food and Lodging, tell them where you're at and what food you want to do, and either you will be working with them and they will connect you with the person that you're going to be working with, or they're going to tell you you need to talk to such and such at this health district and give you their contact information and you can get a hold of them. And that's pretty much what I have in regards to cottage foods. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jayme. I have some questions about your presentation, but I'm going to save them for the Q&A so that we have time to hear from Kara and Jen. Kara and Jen, I'm going to move over to both of you. And I want to start by asking each of you to tell us about your farm business and the products you sell online. So Jen, I'll let you start.
Awesome, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. I apologize, I am super late to the party today. We had a little mishap with our lambs late this morning. So we still have one that's unaccounted for and I can't find, but we got everybody else back in where they belong. So there's never a dull moment on the farm. So I'm Jen Skoog. I have Family Roots Farm just outside of Christine, North Dakota, about 25 miles south of Fargo. And what we have quite a variety of different things on our farm. So we've got a number of different animals. We've got lamb, pigs, and chickens that we all do get meat from. We also have some laying chickens that we get eggs from, along with some ducks that also lay eggs. And then we've got just shy of 2 acres of a vegetable and fruit garden that we go ahead and harvest and sell over at like at different farmers markets. And then a lot of the produce I actually end up processing and then sell under the Cottage Food Law. So we've got lots of jams and pickles. We also do honey that all fall under that. Some of our meats, our pork and our lamb is processed under, it was North Dakota inspection this year, and now it'll actually be under USDA this year. And then our chickens also fall under the cottage food since they're less than the 1,000 that Jayme had mentioned. So that's what we've got going on our farm. I will let Kara jump in on hers.
Carrie, you're still on mute.
Hi.
There we go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kara Winkler. I am part of Glimpse of Prairie, and then my mom is with me as well. Her name's Wanda Burr. She's from Wing, and I'm from Minokan, so close to Bismarck. We started in 2013 just to try out the farmers market in Bismarck called Bismarket. We primarily did vegetables, but we also have done different flavored popcorns and then goat milk soap products, which we sell on our website. And then we do a whole variety of different things too. So we have eggs, beef, different canned goods, baked goods. And then through the summer, we offer vegetable CSA. In the winter, we do winter CSA. So just kind of a lot going on. But we decided to start our website a while ago. And for that, we just sell the goat milk soap, the popcorns. We have information about our CSAs and then information about beef. Beef is kind of hard to sell individual cuts just because the packages might be 1.3 pounds or 0.84 pounds. So we just do by order on that. So yeah.
So I'd like you both to tell us a bit about the process of getting started selling online, what that was like for you, you know, what it was like setting up your online store. And then I'd also like you to talk about fulfillment. How do you get the product to your customers? And we can start with Jen.
So when it came to our online store, one of the big things that, one of the big reasons I should say that we really moved forward with the online store, it was something that I was kind of toying with and started working on through the winter months. But when COVID hit this spring, was kind of that hand that kind of shoved me really into it and really kind of forced me and say, all right, this is what we got to do. Because I had lots of people contacting me, a lot of regular customers, a lot of new people that knew some of our regular customers. And it was kind of hard to keep track of everything. So we started doing the online, and I use Weebly. Getting started, I mean, it was, I'm not going to lie, it was really tough. It was kind of tough because, and I'm sure Kara can contest to this also, is since we sell a lot of meats, our meats are not in perfectly sized packages. They're not all in even weighed size packages. And so you know, sometimes you might get a package that's 0.87 of a pound. Sometimes it's 1.37 pound. They vary so much. So using a standard like a shopping tool, even on our website, was kind of difficult to do. So it was really hard to come up with some creative options to be able to market the things that we sell and to be able to turn around and get those sold. So on our website, we use as far as going into fulfillment a little bit, I don't use a standard shopping basket where people can go ahead and check out and pay for it right away. Instead, what we do is I use a form on my site. So I've got most everything that's listed. I don't do vegetables just because those literally change on like 5 times a day. But a lot of other more static options we've got listed on there. And then through the form, you can go ahead and select which items you'd like, and then it sends me an email. And so then on the fulfillment side, it's a little time consuming just because I'm having to constantly be checking my emails. You know, have I gotten an order in, getting the information, actually going in with the meats. I have to actually fulfill the order because then I can write down exactly the size packages, turn around, and then I have to do an invoice to my customers. And then I have the option of they can pay with cash or check in person, they can pay with credit card, they can pay with Venmo, whichever works best for them. So that's kind of my experience, at least getting it set up. Like I said, was a little on the tricky side, and it's still not 100%, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jen. It's really intimidating. I don't have any kind of background with computer science or anything, so technology is not my gig. but it's like once you get started, you kind of get comfortable with your website and you start creating your products, and it gets better. And usually the support staff is really nice to help you out. But just want to comment that, yeah, it does take a lot of time, especially when you're starting it, to create those products. So time is kind of the struggle for us. It's usually a winter project, and then throughout the summer, just kind of upgrading here and there. So I do something similar to Jen. We do have a form as well with the canned goods, baked goods, and anything that's a cottage food for us. We don't sell on our website. So we did cognitoforms.com. We just created a form. People could fill it out, and then same thing. We had a meeting place, JC Centennial Park in Bismarck. We did every other week. So in April and May, when people were pretty hesitant on coming out, we had those forms filled out. Their bags were all ready to go. They just grabbed their bag. They could put the cash in the jar or their check, or with Venmo. Venmo is really nice if you're not familiar with that. There's no transaction fees, which we really like. And then with our website too, they can order the soaps and the popcorn online, and they can choose a pickup option instead of shipping. So yeah, that's all I was gonna say.
Sorry, I got distracted by something in the room. So we talked about fulfillment, and we talked about the process of getting set up. Are there other things that you've learned along the way? If you were to start over and do it again, how would you do it differently?
Oh boy. It's kind of a tough question to answer, just because, you know, this spring is when I really took hold of the online sales, you know, really got pushed into it. And we all know that we're kind of living in a little bit of a different realm right now. You know, I would say along the fulfillment aspect of it, the hardest part I found was I did a lot of deliveries the first few months. And that was kind of, you know, that kind of went right into the, you know, having COVID and stuff. Nobody wanted to go anywhere. So I feel that that was kind of a slight exception to the rule. But through that, I have decided I don't think I will do delivery again. That was a really tough one. That was a very time consuming. Thankfully, I live halfway between Fargo and Wahpeton, almost to the mile. And I was making 2 deliveries a week to Fargo and 1 to Wahpeton and the surrounding area. So I was delivering usually at least 3 days a week. And it took a lot of extra time. And the good thing was I had a lot of good customers, but I would say it was very time consuming. That's definitely something that I've learned from doing the online sales. The other one is I know I had missed it, but Holly had made a comment if there was some sort of a platform, something that we could do that made, you know, like by this meat by the pound, something, so I don't even know what that would look like right now, but something that would make it a little bit easier to do something like that. I think would be awesome.
Jen, this is Holly. You said you wouldn't be doing deliveries like that. So if you're not doing deliveries, how are you getting your product to you, or how are you getting with your customers now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Holly. So I was doing deliveries for March, April, a little bit of March. I would say April, May, June, and up through the beginning of July. And then farmers market started. So right now I do have the option that you can pre-order. Right now, I'm not gonna lie, we're kind of down there on products. It's just kind of that in-between oddball stage right now. We're waiting for animals to get ready so we can do butchering in September. And then obviously waiting for some produce to get ready. But customers can put in a pre-order if they want and set on which market they would like to pick it up at, on what date. The nice part, Red River Market is allowing customers to pick up a half hour before market opens, which allows those that don't want to deal with big crowds. So my intentions are through the summer is to allow people to be able to pick up at markets if at all possible. In the past, I've given the option of picking up on farm. I had a couple of people take up on that, but I decided I did not like that. But when markets are over, I am open to delivery options for fairly larger orders. Or if there's someone, I have had a couple of people I've delivered to now this summer that I know they've said that they've got, you know, medical issues, or, you know, for whatever reason, they're not able to really leave home. So, but going forward, I think this winter I'll do more of a location pickup where I will say that I'm at this location from this time to this time. You know, you can go ahead and place your order and let me know where and when you'd like to pick it up.
I think those are great decisions to make as far as your business goes, and certainly not out of the realm of what's normal. I mean, we can't expect to hold our farmers and ranchers in other than a quality standard, but a customer service standard at a higher standard than what we're used to. In other words, you look at any other food delivery place and they will say minimum order of $35 or whatever to be delivered to you, or we're not going to deliver to you. You have to come pick it up, and you can come to our location and drive through and pick it up. But otherwise it needs to be a minimum order. And that's basically, as a farmer or rancher, the type of standards that you're holding yourself to, Jen. And I think, you know, we have to look at those as industry standards, and we have to remember that anytime we go out of our way over and above those industry standards, we're now dipping into our own profits and our own time. And we're a business too. We love our customers. We want to serve them in every way possible, but we are a business and we need to stay in business. So sticking to some of those industry standards will help us do that. Sorry, Kara, you're up next.
Well, to go back to the question about do anything different, I'm kind of in the same boat as Jen. Right now, I don't know if we would have done anything different, I guess. There's constantly new things coming out, that new forms that maybe will make it easier down the line, but I think what we're doing right now works for us. So yeah, that form that they fill out is really nice. Before the form, I would just post it on our social media, and I counted there's 8 different places that 8 different things that they could contact me. So either text message, phone call, message on Facebook, through it was just way too confusing. So I recommend, if you're going to start with doing some kind of form so you don't get too confused like me. And I have mom brain, so that doesn't help either.
Could you tell us again, Kara, what platform you were using? You mentioned it earlier, but just to mention it.
Yeah, cognitoform.com. It's a free resource. I know Google Forms, you could use that too. There's a lot of different options, I think, out there. So.
And Dane has also posted in the chat box that there is a calculator tool that can be embedded into websites to calculate price when units sold fluctuate based on weight or size. www.convertcalculator.co.
Yeah, and that one specifically, it came up in a search when I was looking specifically for sites that could have that be embedded that are created on Weebly. So just for Jen specifically, since her site is built on Weebly, this would work with hers. If your site's built on another platform, then it might be another tool that would sync better with your platform. So it depends on what platform you use. But it sounds like if convertcalculator.co works with Weebly, it's probably been made so that it can work with all of these platforms that are relatively easy to use, where you don't need any sort of background coding experience to be able to set it up.
And since you have the floor, Dane, this is a great opportunity for you to tell us about the free assistance that you're offering.
Yeah. So if you are in that place where maybe you need to start a website, you realize that it would be beneficial to your business and you just don't know where to start, I can help you get your website set up using a platform like Weebly, or Squarespace is the platform that I use more often. And so if you want to reach out to me, and we could do an intake call, see what your goals are for the areas that you need the most support in. Maybe you just want to have a little bit more of a marketing push, or maybe it's knowing, like has been mentioned with these forms, like knowing what tools are out there that can just help you more efficiently process orders and keep track of things. There's an unlimited amount of options available, of tools available, and I know that just because of that, it can be very overwhelming to figure out what's actually going to be useful for you. And I can help you sort through that. So if you need help with maybe creating a marketing campaign or a marketing plan, knowing what platforms would be most beneficial to you, starting a website and knowing just where to start with that, or figuring out tools that you could use for taking orders or processing payment, I'm available to jump on calls and then support you until you can get that set up. So I'll drop the link in this chat box, but it's bit.ly/FARRMS, and there's a form there that you can fill out to share a little bit more about yourself, and then I'll follow up with you after you fill that out.
Great. So I'm sure you all have lots of questions. Like I said, we had a lot of questions when we started. And so this is our opportunity to discuss those questions. Hopefully we'll have answers today. If we don't have an answer today, we will do some research and see what we can find, and post the answers in that Google Doc that will be available afterwards. And again, you can use the chat feature. There's a Q&A feature that you can use as well. There's the Google Doc, which Dane has put into the chat box and shared the link. And if you're with us on Facebook Live, you can also post your comments on Facebook. Dane is monitoring all of these. Thank you, Dane. And we'll make sure that we answer your questions. And I'm going to start with this question from Eric Tate. Eric said he is still in the planning stages of his farm, and he's wondering if you all rely solely on your farm profits or if you also work outside of the farm.
So a little bit of background for me. I am actually an accountant by trade. I've been in the accounting world for many years, and prior to starting up my farm, I used to do corporate accounting for a big software company up in Fargo. And honestly, for me, I full blown quit my job. My husband is a conventional farmer, so we've got a little bit of that background. So he does the row crops out in the field, and I've got kind of what I call the homestead farming. So we're both farmers, which provides a lot of good flexibility for our family. But as far as the working outside the home, I did quit my big corporate job. I still do some part-time accounting. I am the auditor for 2 of the local cities, and then also I have a small private business that I go to once a week and help with payroll and things like that. So I do a little bit outside the farm. And then, but that's about it. I mean, before I quit my job, we were thankfully put into a really good situation where I was able to actually quit my job. Everything just kind of lined up the way it did, and it worked out really great for us, which I was super grateful for. But I recognize that that doesn't happen for everybody. So my advice is for people is to always have something in your back pocket. Just to fall back on, or maybe even to do, like even during the winter months, downtime, although we don't have a whole lot of that in summer. But I recommend that people at least keep something in their back pocket, or something smaller part-time that they can easily fall back on if need be.
Yeah, I think that's great advice from Jen. I went to college for animal science, and I ended up not using that. This is kind of my full-time job. My husband is also a conventional farmer and rancher. And then my mom, Wanda, she and her husband, my dad, they farm together as well. So they are conventional farmers too.
And I want to add, since Eric, your question is so great, FARRMS has a Farm Dreams workshop coming up on September 7th, I believe. And Jen Skoog is going to be presenting in that workshop as well. And that is designed to help you think through those very questions. Am I ready to start farming? Do I need to keep my day job? And Farm Dreams leads to our Farm Beginnings workshop, which will be held this winter from November to April. And that is for if you have decided, yes, I'm ready to start, we will help you create your plan. So stay tuned for more information about those workshops and that course.
Stephanie, this is Holly. I'd like to also add in, you know, our times have changed. Our social activities and jobs and economy have changed over the years. And back in the day when, you know, my aunt and uncle were farming and everything, you were either a farmer or you weren't. You were a farmer or you worked in town. And then after a while, it was either, okay, you're a farmer or you're a hobby farmer who also has a job, or you work in town. And we tended to put everybody in these silos and categories. You know, the USDA and the census statistics that are coming out now are showing that even our larger conventional farms, somebody in that household works off the farm in many cases. It's the lucky folks like Jen and Kara that have found a way to bring in that additional income to a farm without having to leave the farm. So I just, you know, in response to that question about can I just farm or do I have to work off the farm? You'll find that many, even our larger conventional farms, have a spouse or someone within the family that works off the farm. That scenario is very common now, and it doesn't need to be siloed one or the other anymore.
Wonderful. So we have a question in the Q&A box. The first one is they want to know about meat. Do you tell us about how you process your meat? Do you process it yourself or where do you go?
Our meats, I think I mentioned this before, our lamb and our pork actually get sent and we take it down to Oaks, North Dakota. They are able to process it now starting, last summer they started doing USDA, and we had already processed our pork and had our lamb done in Enderlin under state inspection, but now starting this year we'll be under USDA, which thankfully allows me to cross those state lines legally. So our pork and our lamb is processed under USDA by a professional butcher. Our chickens are actually fall under the, like Jayme had mentioned, it falls under the cottage food, but you still have to go through and do the actual application and get your certificate saying that you're allowed to process your small flock under 1,000. So that setup, we thankfully have actually a space that with a little bit more work could actually be an inspected kitchen. So we've got a really nice space that we're able to do and process all of our birds into, which is kind of nice.
For our beef, we do send it to Bowden, which is USDA inspected. And then we do offer like whole halves and quarters as well, and that's processed as well as West Dakota meats. So yeah, we have a beef retail license that allows us to sell individual cuts too.
So the second part of that question is, have you ever looked into web platforms like Barn to Door that allow you to sell by weight for meats? And if so, pros and cons.
I've looked into it a little bit. I'm not, honestly, my issue comes with cost. Is that some of those programs, they're really great and they offer something fantastic. I feel that I'm just a little small yet for some of these to be able to handle the associated costs that go along with it. So sometimes I know I can sit there and I consider, well, my time, my time costs money too, but I don't have, I can't exactly take my time and pay something with it either. So the thing that holds us back is the sheer cost aspect of it. However, I've looked into it and I do enjoy some of these different platforms. And I think that maybe someday, as things continue to grow, as we get more of a larger following, we're probably going to end up using something like that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Jen. We don't have the quantity. I think to have the website just for our meats. They all look really nice. I've looked at quite a few of their websites, or people who have websites from barn to door. Really nice website, but same thing. We just don't have the quantity for it. So.
I will also say that if you go to the page that I've created, farms.org Marketing 2020, there's a link to some resources. And those resources are on FARRMS resource page. And North Central SARE is one region. SARE operates across the entire nation. And so webinars like these and resources for online marketing are being created all over the US by organizations that are similar to FARRMS. And so on that resource page, I've linked to some other webinars in other states and some one-pagers that compare and contrast all the different online marketing platforms out there that are created just for local foods. There's many different features, many different price schedules. And so if you go there, you can see a breakdown of those. We also had a question from Fame about if there's an app in development for online sales for farmers markets. I am aware of a project in Fargo that is working with the Red River Market to develop an online sales platform for that market. I am aware of a project that will be working with a few counties in north central and northeastern North Dakota to create an app for an online farmers market. Are the rest of you aware of any other resources or tools, apps?
Stephanie, I'm aware of just the same ones that I think you're aware of. I know Harvestable was a big one that had come out a few years back. The usability of it just wasn't quite there. And so I know they've been working with Red River Market. Their intention was to get something up and going before the market had opened, to allow people to put in their pre-orders and be able to pick up and things like that. But I haven't heard anything as to where that's been going. But that's all I'm aware of. I think it'd be great just knowing some of the backside of it. It's a little tricky. It's very tricky, especially when you're dealing. I mean, the farm life is tricky and unpredictable in the first place. My morning is proof of it. So it's really tough, especially when you're dealing with multiple people that have a lot moving and shifting on a daily basis. So, but I think there's a lot of room for advancement in that area, being able to connect people more with their local foods. Just the tricky part is, how does that look and how do we make it happen?
Mm-hmm. Dane, do you have is there anything else in the Google Doc that I should address?
No, most of the activity has been happening in this chat box here. But I will say that on the Google Doc, any of the resources that have been mentioned on the call, I've been putting in the link section at the bottom. So I think when we follow up with anybody who's attended, we can share this along to them and they can get all the resources that have been mentioned throughout the calls.
I want to make you aware of some of the resources that we shared in the Google Doc. We have the link to where you can find your local health districts. and where you can learn more about cottage food in North Dakota. Also, just yesterday, Cass Clay Food Partners in Fargo and Moorhead did a Facebook Live update about local food sales across the North Dakota-Minnesota state line, which tends to be an issue for people like Jen, who live right close to the Red River, which divides North Dakota and Minnesota, and serve customers on both sides of that line. So I would encourage you to check out Cass Clay Food Partners Facebook page. They have links to resources there, and an extension agent from U of Minnesota Extension shares in a video update some information about food sales across the state line. So we just have a few minutes left, and I'm just checking to see if we covered all the questions that we had. So as we learned today, you can sell a lot of different products online, and it's a great way to reach more customers. There are some challenges in getting started, and that's why Dane is here to provide you that assistance in getting going. I would encourage you to reach out to Dane for help in setting up your own website or online shopping platform for your business. I encourage you to visit farrms.org/marketing2020. We will post the recording of this webinar. The recording of our webinar on June 18th is also there, and you can also access the Google Doc where we've been taking notes for both webinars. That's also a great way to get in touch with Dane, myself, or Holly Mobby. We'll have information for all of us there. Again, I want to thank the Entrepreneurial Center for Horticulture and the Farmers Market and Growers Association. I want to thank Dane Johnson for his work on this project. And of course, I want to thank North Dakota SARE and North Central SARE for their funding of this project. Thank you all for joining us today, for asking questions and sharing your input. Thank you to Jen Skoog, and thank you to Carol Winkler. We so appreciate your participation and sharing your experience. I hope you all have a great Thursday afternoon.